Alright, and we're back with the next part of this one, which is my Kamigawa Neon Dynasty preview kind of look at. Completely blind. As I'm recording this is the day after pre-release, so we are going through each of the colours one by one through Scryfall to see how good these cards are. I have not seen most of these cards. I've seen like very rare previews, and even those previews I think were like spoiled and probably slightly incorrect. So far the site has been very strange. It's had a mix of really cool stuff and a mix of very boring stuff, so I don't know how I feel about it so far. In the red section we covered over cards which basically allowed you to win the game, and then cards which just absolutely just didn't do anything. I think blue has been the worst showing so far, but we'll see how we carry on here. We're going to green with Azula's Many Journeys. Azusa's Many Journeys, I can't read. Play additional land each turn, gain 3 life, and the creature is, let's see here. Whenever it becomes blocked, untap 3 lands you control. So, for 2 mana 3/3 isn't the worst. The playing additional land could be relevant. The gaining 3 life just isn't important at all. Like, nothing is cared about gaining life, so it's just for survival. I don't feel like this thing would be blocked like super often, so I feel like that line of text saying like block up to 3 things, sorry, untap 3 lands is super irrelevant. Bamboo Grove Archer, 2 mana 3/3, Defender and Reach. Okay, so 3/3 for Defender is pretty decent, especially with Reach 1. Channel 5, discard it, destroy a target creature with flying. I think this is really decent. This is really decent. Like, we've already seen a card which removes Defender from cards anyway earlier on. It's a 3/3 for 2. We've seen a decent amount of flying things from blue. And just being able to discard it to destroy something later on is pretty good, despite how high costing it is. I think this is really good. Let's see here. Bearer of Memory. 5 mana. Sorry, 7 mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target enchantment creature specifically. And it gains trample to end of turn. For a stat line, it's not good. It's not a good card. That ability is way too high costed and way too specific. I mean, yes, these last 2 cards have both been enchantment creatures, but that's still a super like fringe card type. Like, unless you're playing enchantress style stuff, I think it's not going to see any ability play whatsoever. Blossom Prancer, 5 mana spirit with reach for 4/4. Let's see, when it enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a creature card or enchantment card from among them, put them into your hand, put the rest at the bottom in any order, then you gain 4 life. Sorry, if you didn't put a card in your hand, gain 4 life. Yeah, I like this card. This is okay. It's a bit high costed, but for 4/4 for 5 is decent. Reach is a good card type because, again, flyers are all over the place. 5 cards is a decent amount to look through to find a creature or enchantment, especially since creatures can, well, okay, it finds a creature anyway, but sagas are definitely a thing. Enchantments are relevant in this set a lot more. Surprised it doesn't say land, but gaining 4 life if you don't find something, at least it does something if you don't find something, even if it's not a fantastic effect. I think it's decent. Probably see a little bit of play, but probably won't replace other things. Boon of Procedure, that's a word I had to say. 2 mana instant, card creates XX, where X is the greatest mana among X is the greatest mana among opponents you control, then untap it. So basically, whatever your biggest thing is, make it that big as well, untap it. Good late game card. I mean, the last card we looked at was a 5 cost card, so make something +5/+5 and untap it. Yeah, for a quick cantrip, it's not the worst. It's very fringe though, because you have to specifically control something big, and so far the biggest thing we've seen in green is this Blossom Prancer. Let's see here. Procedure reaches skyward. That's a weird card name. Search your library for 2 basic forest cards. With them, add them to your hand and shuffle. So it finds lands for 4 mana, specifically forests though, so that is a bit more limiting. Put a land card from your graveyard on top of your library, so it recurs a land. I'm not a big fan of the fact it says put it on top of your library. And the last part is probably gets bigger for each land you control. Yep, gets +1/+1 for each land you control. Why is that so pixelated? Is that just me, or is that like really pixelated? I mean, being bigger for each land you control, I don't like the second part of this effect because it just like locks you into a top drawer which you may not need. Especially since the last card we looked at cared about everything but lands. But honestly, big creature, it would have been nice if it said put a basic land into play, but searching for 2 lands from your deck is still good. And chances are high you're searching for 2 lands, you're probably discarding 1 anyway. Careful cultivation, enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchanted, gets +1/+3 and gains reach and taps for 2 mana. That's kind of cool. Channel is discard a card, create a human monk, which is Alano Elves. Yeah, that's actually pretty okay. Even chance of it to make it into a 2 mana dork or discard it to make a single mana dork. Not going to complain about that, that's okay. For just a basic enchantment, and if you don't need it, you can get rid of it. And it makes a body. Coin Snake and Ninjutsu. Been a while since we read a Ninjutsu card. Were there any red Ninjutsu cards? I don't think there were. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, but doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it. It's okay. We haven't actually seen heavy things which give +1/+1 counters so far, so I guess having something which does it, but the fact it's only one thing, and it has to have no counters to begin with, makes it a lot more limiting. It's okay, especially for its cost. It's okay. Commune with Spirits. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Reveal enchantment or land from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library. 1 mana. Search 4 cards. Find a card. I'm not going to complain. I think it's a bit slow though. Let's see. Dragon Kami Reborn. Gain 2 life. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down with a hatchling counter on it. Then put the rest on top. Okay, what's a hatchling counter? And the other half is a enchantment egg. Whenever Dragon Kami egg or dragon control dies, you may cast a creature spell from among the cards and exile the hatchling counter on it without paying its mana cost. So you exile 2 things and have a chance of bringing 2 things back. I think the fact that it's not guaranteed is a bit rough. The actual flip side of this isn't fantastic, unless there's something else which puts more counters on stuff. I don't know, because you're only really going to be triggering this part once. And even then, you're not even guaranteed to search for a specific card. I don't think that's a good card. Fade into Antiquity, exile target artifact or enchantment. Good card, just remove something, 3 mana. Same as sorcery speed, but I think removal is going to be important. Fang of Shigeki, Snake Ninja, Death Touch, 1/1. Probably going to get through for ninjutsu triggers. I think that's pretty decent. Flavor of Juriki, enchant creature or artifact. Let's see, gets +3/+3 and gains reach. 4 mana to gain reach for +3/+3. Not great. Discard it and basically gives it +3/+3 once and reach. Reach is relevant in this card type because there's a lot of flyers, but honestly, it's not fantastic. I don't think there's any way of making this particularly better, but it's just slightly awkwardly costed, I think. Generous Visitor. Whenever you cast enchantment, +1/+1 counter on target creature. That is really good. 1/1 spirit. Really cheap, really nice. A lot of enchantments being cast. We've already seen this set already cares about enchantment creatures now for green, so I think that's really good. And the fact it doesn't have to be itself is decent because you can put a lot of counters on stuff. This was what I was hoping the other card would have done. Geothermal Kami, 4 mana, 4/3, so decent stat line. Okay, I'm not mad with stat line. When it enters the battlefield, return enchantment you control to its owner's hand. If you do, gain 3 life. Its effect is kind of rubbish. Its effect is generally kind of rubbish. I think this is unplayable purely because its effect might as well be vanilla, do nothing. We got our shrine. Trample Shrine. A 1/1 Trample Shrine. That's actually kind of abysmal. I believe at end step you may pay 1, but a +1/+1 counter for each shrine you control, so it's a Hydra Shrine, which this is probably the worst one, purely because it requires the other shrines to do anything. Like, even by itself, it puts a +1/+1 counter on itself, just one. If you have more, it can make itself really, really big, which could be really relevant. It could become a Mana Gorger Hydra, essentially. But with the amount of like 1 damage removal in this set, I feel like you'd have to be playing all of them and get them out fast, or this thing does absolutely nothing. Grafted Growth, enchant land, enter the battlefield +1/+1 counter on a creature control, and this thing taps for 2 mana of any one colour. I mean, it's okay. It's a bit high costed for what it does, but it allows you to put a counter on something, and it taps for 2 mana. What more can you ask for enchanting a land? Greater Tanuki, which is apparently a dog. Trample, 6/5 for 6 mana. Stats very high cost, but I think the stat line's okay. 3 mana, discard it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield. Yeah, actually I think that's a good card, purely because it's 3 mana to find a land. Like, finding the land and putting it onto the battlefield is much better than putting it into hand. If you don't need the land, it's a big 6/5 trampling creature. It's a bit high costed, but it's not the worst. I mean, we've seen worse cards in this set. Hammer's Emergence, Aura, enchant a land, becomes a 4/5 spirit, and you can make it indestructible like the other one. Okay, so yeah, we've got 2 of these now. I like this. I do like the fact it does make it indestructible. It's much higher cost than the red one though, so I think the red one will be a personal preference over the green one, but I feel like it's going to see more play in green because of just green finds land. Heir of the Ancient Fang, enters with +1/+1 counters if you have a modified creature. Not fantastic. It's relying on another effect to be going off first. The only relevant line here is that it's a samurai. It doesn't do anything else past that point. Historia's Wisdom. When it enters the battlefield, enchant a permanent. As long as it... Hang on. Enchanted permanent is a creature... Hang on. What? If enchanted permanent is a creature with the greatest power among creatures you control, draw a card. Okay, I could not read that for a second. Gets +2/+1. I think that's actually really kind of awful. Like, 3 mana to possibly draw a card, and it just makes it slightly bigger. We've seen better auras. Invoke the Ancients. Alright. 4 mana, 4 green, and 1 generic. Create 2/4/5 spirit creature tokens. For each of them, put your choice of a vigilance, reach, or trample counter on it. That is not good. Okay, sure. 5 mana for 2 bodies, which are decently sized, which have a relevant keyword. It's okay. It's probably the most playable. It makes tokens. It makes big tokens, but green is probably the only one which can get away with playing something like this because it does ramp itself massively. But the fact it's 4 green mana, which is so expensive. Julian Defends the Temple is a saga. Create a monk. Oh, it creates Valano Elf token. Okay. Put a +1/+1 counter onto 2 targets and becomes a flying 2/2 creature, which whenever a creature enters the battlefield you may pay X, and if you do, put X +1/+1 counters on that creature. As long as you try 5 or more modified creatures, this gets +5/+5 and trample. I like this. That's actually kind of cool. Because not only does it like have a Hydra effect of making something bigger for a 2/2, it has flying, so it has evasion to begin with. And if you do end up controlling enough things, which again not counting on, at least it becomes bigger. So that's actually kind of useful. Plus it actually gives itself the ability to first place. The only challenge is getting the creatures on board. Judiciary Preserver. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Relevant. 4 mana 3/3 is okay. Channel is discard the card, put a +1/+1 counter on 2 target creatures. So if you don't need the creature, it costs 1 less to do it, but I see no reason why you wouldn't cast this as a creature. Judikai Trainee. Attacks the blocks. So when it blocks or becomes blocks, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. 2 mana 2/2, which becomes slightly bigger while blocking and attacking. I think that's okay. It's okay as a in a sealed environment. It's probably not going to see much play outside of that. Kanban Transcendence is a creature spirit trample. Whenever you cast a enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So +1/+1 counter is always good because it stays. Getting an end step. If enchantment is put into your graveyard, you may return. Hang on. If an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may put Kami Retreat from your graveyard to your hand. So it can recur itself. That's actually really damn good. It's a recurring creature which always gets bigger when you play more enchantments. That is actually really, really good. If it dies, the only cost of getting it back is having another enchantment go away, which enchantment ores will probably go away anyway. Alright, next up we got Kappa the Tech Wrecker. Let's see here. Turtle Ninja. 2 mana, 1/3. Ninjutsu card, always a decent thing to see. Let's see here. Enters the battlefield with a Death Touch counter on it. Ooh. Death Touch is always terrifying, but I don't think it's relevant with Ninjutsu as much. Let's see. When it deals combat damage, you may remove the Death Touch counter. If you do, exile artifact or enchantment to player controls. That is more relevant. I do like the fact it comes in, has a counter, get rid of the counter, destroy something. Or just remove it, just get rid of it. No longer see it. I like that as a card. I think that's more relevant, especially with a lot, as we've seen, as enchantments and artifacts in play from this set. I feel like we're going to see a lot more of those styles of decks come up super fast. Kodama the West Tree. 3 mana 3/3, always good. Reach, modified creatures you control have trample. That is actually nice and relevant because, as we've seen, a lot of things get +1/+1. I mean, Kamigawa Transcendence back there, probably one of the best Kami cards we've seen so far. Just because everything, just gets bigger. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage, search your library for a land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shut. Oh, that is disgusting. Because it doesn't say one or more, it just says when a modified creature, so that includes everything. And since it gives everything trample too, that is really powerful. In a creature-based strategy with a lot of +1/+1 counters or a lot of artifact enchantment, equipment, anything like that, this thing could absolutely ramp your entire deck out super fast. I think this is really powerful. It's really cheaply costed. I don't think it's good enough to become a commander by itself. I mean, it might just be on that level doing something with that. But in a 99 style, that could be really powerful. Kura of the Boundless Sky is the dragon part of the green cycle. Flying Death Touch. And what's it do when it dies? Search library for 3 basic lands, put them into your... No, sorry, 3 lands, not basic. It could be any lands. That's actually really good. Add them to your hand and shuffle. I wish you'd be able to play, but that would probably be way too powerful. And the other one is create a spirit where X is the number of land you control. So make a big token equal to the number of land you control. Actually, that's just really good. That's actually a really good dragon, to be honest. Searching a library for any 3 lands, if you look at classic searching for any lands, there's been the one which now turns all lands into forest. There's been the one which turns all lands into swamps. There's always cards which benefit any dual lands, shock lands, anything which is non-basic, just grab it, put it into your hand. That is really powerful, and there's probably ways of recurring this. It's probably fair it doesn't say actually put them into play. That would have been more broken. And if you don't need more lands, being able to create a creature based on how many lands you have is good. And here we have the march. Okay. As the other cycle has been going so far, exile a green card to do whatever this is doing. Choose a target creature with mana value less than X. Search your library for a creature card which shares the same name as that creature and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. In Commander, this is unplayable. This is just straight unplayable because you're not going to have a card with the same name in Commander. And it's a target creature. Even in regular decks, like a lot of the really powerful cards are just straight up legendary cards. So a lot of the cards only become relevant like ninjutsu wise coming into play. I mean, okay, the Kami Spirit up there would be probably your best target. This is just a bad card. The fact it limits you to having a card with the same name. Like, am I reading that right? Like, choose a target creature with mana value less than X. Search a library for a card with the same name. Yeah, I am reading that right. I mean, it could technically become relevant if you target your opponent's creature and you're playing the same card, but no, this is the worst one. Like, just that clause of having it being the same name has made it... And it's tapped. It can't even attack with a turn you put it in. I mean, I guess one thing you could do is technically use the dragon. Like, you know, use the dragon to reveal with it, but by the time you pay the additional cost, you might as well just play the dragon to start with. I'm probably missing some use, some useful card for it, but this is the worst one. This is unplayable. Master's Rebuke. Target creature control deals damage to power to creature planeswalker you don't control. It's not a fight card, so your creature is less likely to die. It just deals the damage to it, so that's good. I noticed fights disappeared off like for a while, so that's a thing. So that is a decent little removal spell in green. If you need to play green and just green, that's a good one to use. A Rotary Merge Keeper, 2 mana dork, and as long as it's modified, it taps for 2 green instead of 1. My only worry that it's a 1/1. The fact it's a 1/1 makes it a bit more scary to play. We've seen slightly better tap for 2 mana for that, like, power. I just worry that it's going to die super quickly. Roaring Earth is an enchantment for 2 mana. When a land enters the battlefield, you may put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle. So landfall, put a +1/+1 counter on something. That's good. Channel cost, by discarding it for 2 green and X, put a +1/+1 counter onto each. Hang on. Put X +1/+1 counters on target land you control and it becomes a creature. Okay, so I think the enchantment side of it is better than its channel cost. By far. I don't think the channel cost will become super relevant at any point unless you're literally out of lands and you just need a way of winning. But I don't dislike it. That's an okay one. That actually feels a lot less modify strategies going on in screen style. Season Renewal. I feel like this is a reprint, but I might be wrong. Choose one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Return target enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. See, this is a non-punishing, instant speed, no restriction, just add a card back. We've seen other cards previously which try doing the same thing but say, oh, you must control something or the other. This just does the thing it says on the book. It's okay. Not fantastic, it's okay. Shigeki Judikai Visionary. Legendary Snake Druid. My god, could they fit any more text on that line? Pay 2, tap it, return it to your owner's hand or over top 4 of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield. And then put the rest into your graveyard. Okay. So you've got to wait a turn to return it to your hand to put a land into play, which you can miss. That doesn't seem great so far. And channel is double X and 2. To discard this card to return X non-legendary cards from your graveyard. This is a bad legendary. Like, this is just a bad legendary. Without haste, this thing just is so slow, it's irrelevant. It didn't need the tap cost. I mean, I guess without it you could go infinite, but I think they're too scared of going infinite to just allow this thing to be good. Because it searches too little of your library to find a land, which comes in tapped anyway, so you can't abuse that, and mills you for the rest of it. And XX means basically for every 2x, for every 2x you're paying into it, so every 2 mana you're putting into this, you're only getting 1 bonus. So if you're paying is X equal to 2, for example, so green, green, and 2 more mana, you're basically getting to return 1 card from your graveyard to your hand. This is a bad legendary. I don't see why this is a rare. I don't see why this is so slow. I don't see why it has to be such long creature card typing. I feel like either I'm missing something or this is just really bad showing a card. Spinning Wheel Kick, hilarious card name, green, green, and double X, so same as the last one. Basically, every 2 mana into it is equal to 1, essentially. Target creature deals damage equal to its power to X number of target creatures and planeswalkers. I think this is a bad card. It's too high costed. So yes, target creature could be a really big thing. So next card is a 6/5. I'm just using that as my example for a moment. But by the fact you're paying like already 2 mana to get it to actually cast in the first place, you've got to pay 4 mana to deal 6 damage to one thing. And keep going up for more things. There's better cards which do it more effectively for lower cost. I don't think this is a good card. I think it's way too high cost of what it does. It just needs to be a single X for what it does. Springleaf Avenger, 5 mana, 6/5 ninjutsu card. When it deals combat damage, you may return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. I think that's good. 4 mana ninjutsu 6/5. It's a lot of damage out of nowhere. It's grabbing you something back from the graveyard. You're probably not going to pay the 5 cost to play it, but even if you do, that's good stats. I think that's a good card. Storyweave, choose 1 for a 3 mana instant. Put 2+1/+1 counter on target creature control, so immediate trigger modify. Put 2 lore counters on a target saga you control. The next time 1 or more enchantment creatures enter the battlefield this turn, they enter an additional 2+1/+1 counters. That is really cool, actually. I like this. So using this next card as an example, basically each one of these points, the 1, 2, and 3, is a lore counter. So you're basically immediately turning your lore counter into a creature. And you trigger the effect as you go through with it, because when you add the lore counter, it triggers the effect. So for this next one, I'm just going to go through it now and go back to the other card. First one is put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature or vehicle and it gains vigilance. You do that, you cast Storyweave, you then do it again, then you turn it into its creature side. I think this is super good. It's nice to see something actually care about lore counters and speed that up. The other half of this card is a Vigilance Haste 5/5 creature. I think this is too high costed, by the way. I'm going to mention this card now. It's too high cost of what it does. The +1/+1 counter, we've already seen cards which do it better. At least it's a 5/5 body, which I think is the most relevant, and it has haste and vigilance. So in terms of that, a 5 mana 5/5, if you cast Storyweave with it, you get a very fast, powerful creature, which could be a 7/7 out of nowhere. Aside from that, I think it's a bit too slow, as most of these have been so far. Tamio Safekeeping. Target permanent you control gets hexproof and indestructible to end of turn, and you gain 2 life. 1 mana cantrip protects something from dying and from targets. That's really good. I really like that. That's actually a really powerful enchantment. Hello, it's an instant. Really powerful instant which protects you just outright. Not complaining. Teaching it for Kirin. Mill 3 cards. Create a 1/1. Why are they colourless creature tokens? I don't understand why they're colourless spirits. Second part is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Oh, sorry, target creature even. That would be far more powerful. And the creature is Kirin Touched Orochi. Whatever attacks you is 1, exile target creature card from a graveyard. If you do, create a spirit token. Exile target from a graveyard. If you do, put a +1/+1 creature on. For its cost, it's okay. I don't really see the relevance of having a mill strategy in green for this specific deck, because nothing so far has cared about graveyards and recursion too heavily outside of like 1 or 2 resurrections and returning things from graveyard to hand. From that, +1/+1 counters here don't really change a lot. Like, there's better cards which do it, and this would be turn 2 it's doing it. Even with Story Weave here, I think it's a bit too slow. And the other half just... It's specifically like whenever it attacks. So you're attacking with a 1/1, hoping it survives long enough to do multiple things. I think it's a bad card, honestly. Weaver of Harmony, Snake Druid. Other enchantment creature control gets +1/+1. That's actually kind of decent. It's just a tribal power up for that type of card. There's been a lot of them so far. Let's see here. Copy target activate ability of your control of an enchantment source. That's actually kind of cool. That's actually really cool. I actually really like that one. That's actually a really good card because that includes the shrines. That includes like the enchantment like creatures up there. So Kieran Touch of Rotary targets it. It's a 2-mana 2/2. It only costs a single green and a tap to do so. It buffs everything. I think that's a really good lord. Really needed for Enchantress strategies. I think that's super good and super relevant. And finally, Web Spinner Cuff is a artifact creature spider with reach. Gives something +1/+4 and reach. Reconfigure 4 for +1/+4. It's a bit high reconfigure cost. A bit high for a reach cost. I think it's actually not that great, to be honest. It's too high cost for what it does. Its equip cost is too high just to give something reach, and I'm pretty sure we saw stuff which was better than it to start with. But that does it for the covering of green for now. Bluntly, outside of that instant which cares about lore counters, and the Kieran which cares about gaining enchantment stuff, and the Lord maybe, green has been very disappointing. It cares about a lot of land stuff which green usually does. The dragon definitely is going to be useful because it just grabs any lands. But I feel like a lot of its sagas have been disappointing. A lot of its creatures haven't really supported themselves, and so many more have just been way too slow to do anything. I mean, at least there's some decent ninjas supporting green, but even in Commander, you're probably not going to be using them because a lot of ninjutsu commanders are blue-black exclusively. So let's find out what the multicolored offerings have for us, and hopefully we can pull out like some cool combo pieces and find out what this set is truly about when you see what happens when you join colors together.